is the Kev Baker Show.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. A big, huge, warm welcome to this, the Kev Baker Show, on Thursday night, Friday morning, with me, your host, Kev Baker, and my good friend and fellow co-host, Johnny Whistles. The date's just turned the 22nd of August here in the UK, and we're without our sparring partner tonight, Big Marty. As you know, if you've been listening all week, which he should have been, he's been decorating all week, and it's been absolutely immense that he's been able to join us at all, but he's taken a much-deserved night off tonight. I think he's been up for something like 48 hours, Johnny, painting constantly, trying to get ready for the carpets to go down, so big respect to the big man, and a much-needed rest for him, I think.
Yeah, well, if your house is as big as Buckingham Palace, you know what I mean, I take it would take that long. So, yeah, it's a shame though, he's working and he's painting and he's doing the show, due a night off, definitely, Kev.
Definitely, and we will steer this ship tonight somehow, Johnny, won't we? We're going to have a more relaxed kind of night, because a couple of hours after this show finishes, we're going to be jumping on with Popeye, Federal Jack, down the rabbit hole. That starts at 3 a.m. here in the UK. That's 10 p.m. East Coast, and I believe it's 7 on the West Coast. How's that? I'm getting my clocks all sorted out here, Johnny. And over the next few weeks, folks, just you wait till you hear the improvement. Maybe not in the content that comes from me, but certainly in my voice. We're looking at audio solutions right now, Johnny, aren't we? And we're going to be buying mixers and mics and all the gubbins.
Yeah, definitely, Kev, because my microphone can pick up flies farting. You know what that's like. That picks up anything, so
but the only bad thing is, Whistles, it might actually end up getting rid of that trademark of yours, the whistle.
Yeah, I know. I like the name, but I hate the whistle.
Oh, no danger. Well, Johnny, do you want to do the chat room tonight, man?
Yeah, no problem, Kev. And we've got your favourite number in again, Kev, 33. It's incredible every time you go to that, how many times it's 33.
Welcome to my world, John.
Yeah. Well, so thanks everybody anyway for coming into the chat. And we'll start with Alpha Dog, Base LVK. We've got Popeye in there. How you doing? Gergs, Harold70. Hell yeah. Our very own Kev. Madonna's X. Mitty Bush. Nosboy. Paisley Buddy. Sees World War III, Sidestepper, Sloke, whatever that is, Stushy, Sinfox, Mix.
John, you just muted up or something. You've gone all quiet on me.
Sorry, mate. Wrong button again, Kev. Sorry. Touch it and camera, Kev, and it's just an ons and an ons after that. So. And
what I want to know is why Popeye's in the chat room and he didn't actually tell me what to jump on this show. I mean, we're doing the 3 hours over the night, John. Why can't he be here? I'll be expecting a message really, really soon on Skype, Popeye, to say that you're coming to join us. But let's get into this, folks. Over the past couple of nights, last night with Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton on, and we were going over how we felt the Ferguson riots had been very much orchestrated problem, reaction, solution. Now, one of the main videos that's been doing the rounds, and I don't know if you've seen this one, Johnny, but it's the cop who's acting uber aggressively, telling people to go F themselves. Now, the suburban St. Louis police officer has now been suspended indefinitely for threatening to kill protesters and journalists in Ferguson because he'd pointed the rifle at the crowd, and this comes from, it's officer Lieutenant Ray Albers, 46, a 20-year police veteran, was caught on film by live streamers yelling at protesters and journalists, "I will bleep, kill you, get back, get back." And Johnny, the actions that he was displaying really did worry me. I didn't see it live at the time, but I caught it the next day, and I was very fearful if this was the attitude that the police were taking, then this was going to escalate well out of control.
Definitely, Kevin, and quite rightly so. He should be suspended or even sacked for that reason, because that's not. But Kev, the thing is with that, is he mad enough? If somebody would have maybe thrown a bottle at him, would he have been mad enough to actually pull a trigger because he was that frightened?
I don't know, but can you imagine the consequences if he actually did, John?
Well, this is it. Do you know what I mean? They just seem so trigger happy. I watched the video of the guy getting shot with a knife. Even that one, Kev, Now, if you look at that, there's 2 cops there. So why you need 2 guns, I don't know. One of them could have had a taser. If the taser doesn't work, then you've got every right to take the guy down, but at least try a taser first, Kev, because there's something wrong with this guy.
You see, this is what I worry about, John, when the guns start coming out to cops in the UK. I've said it before, it's just going to absolute recipe for disaster, John. Not only are you going to see more criminals arming with themselves with guns, but just simple human error mistakes are going to cost lives. That's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, definitely. It seems to be, Kev, that I don't know what's wrong with police. I don't know why they've become so afraid, because that's the word that I think you have to use. But why? How did it come to the...
I think it's...
Did they just go to somebody's door now, Kevin, and shoot the wrong person? It's
the training they get, John. They're actually taught that everyone is a criminal and everyone is a terrorist. It's just... This is us now starting to see everything coming to fruition that we've always warned about. And that's why I really do worry that this thing in Ferguson, hopefully it's calming down now, but I just feared it would spread, John. I really did. But thankfully, so far, that hasn't happened.
Yeah, I'm glad that even when some fires have started with provocateurs and the protesters have went and put it out, so they know as well that there's people down there that shouldn't be there trying to stir up trouble. So it's good to see that people are actually watching out for that, Kev.
Definitely. Now, further afield in the world, and certainly here in the UK, the main story in town is the beheading of James Foley, and more importantly, the fact that it was a British man who allegedly took this guy's head off. Now, I'm just going to play this clip here, and we'll discuss this just after we listen. F it, please.
Infamous for cold-blooded murder, a British jihadist has become the focus of a manhunt by intelligence agencies on both sides of the Atlantic. Known to his victims as John, the jihadi jailer who beheaded Jim Foley has been investigated for over a year. He was the chief negotiator for the Islamic State and has been involved in Skype conversations with the friends and families of those he held for ransom. It's these communications that would have propelled him to the top of the intelligence target list.
A lot of work has been done over the last couple of years in Syria to try and establish a better intelligence picture, but it's a big territory, it's a very hostile operating environment, and even the best intelligence is never going to give you a complete panoptic view.
An American filmmaker who spent many months on the front line with foreign volunteers fighting the Damascus regime in Syria said that British policies have made it hard to gather human intelligence from deserters from the Islamic State.
The British government has convinced them that the government is an enemy to all of them. So there would be no real chance that anybody would say, hey, you know what? The guy who did such and such a thing, that's him. I know him. I came over with him, because they've all been branded this. It's basically that they're all going to share a jail cell together if they all went back to the UK.
James Foley was murdered following US airstrikes against the Islamic State. Another journalist, Stephen Sotloff, faces the same fate unless the air raids stop. A rescue attempt, triggered either by fresh intelligence or by an earlier threat to the lives of the hostages, was launched by US Delta Force commandos on a militant base known as Osama bin Laden camp in early July. But no hostages were found. But experts are confident that Jim Foley's killer has now exposed himself to eventual capture.
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when the intelligence agencies are formally able to identify John. You have MI5, MI6 that will be working on human intelligence, putting together the information they have. Signals intelligence will also be very important. John will have been communicating on the phone to people, potentially even in the UK. So groups like GCHQ will play a role. And then, of course, there's the international factor, working with the United States, because they have a vested interest. So agencies like the CIA, the NSA will be playing a key role as well.
The Islamic State is known to be holding more than 20 foreign hostages. So now that the killing has begun, the hunt is also a race against time. Sam?
Well, there you go, folks. That's the latest on the beheading and this new guy they're calling British John. And while that video was playing, we've been joined by our good friend, fellow host on the network, Popeye. How are you doing, man?
Gentlemen.
How are you? We've seen you in the chat room. It's a bad move. Come in as a non, and then we can't drag you in.
I kind of owe you. You're coming on tonight anyway, so.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that. Really, really looking forward to that. But, Popeye, we were discussing there this video, the beheading. Now, I haven't seen it, and you asked me if I had a link for it. Now, I believe right now in the UK, if I was to share that link with you, I would put myself under threat of arrest. They are deeming it breaking the law. I don't know what law it actually is, if you actually share links for this beheading.
Yeah, I saw Paul Joseph Watson commenting on that even if you watch the video, they say that it might be an act of terrorism, which there's no law apparently on the books even over there that even would back that up. It's just them saying that. You know, why they would say that. You know, obviously, like Rahm Emanuel said over here, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Do I think the video is real? I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Same here, man. I was hoping you probably had, because I know you were looking for it, or you'd been asking for a link for it. But
for 3 days, I've been trying to find it, but for whatever reason, I can't find any credible links to it. You know, I find links to a video where it's like still shots, like that they've taken off of news articles. You know, where he's got the knife right up against his Adam's apple. Do I believe that they probably did it? Yeah, of course I'm sure they probably cut the guy's head off. All you have to do is look at it from a different perspective. Look at it like that poor guy was used as a set piece. That had to happen because there's look at it like, if you look at it and you understand how things work behind the scenes, right? I look at it as one of these, okay, we haven't gotten the American public or the politicians over there behind putting boots on the ground back in Iraq, and, you know, more money for the military-industrial complex and all the shenanigans that they pull. We can't get them behind it yet, even with everything ISIS is do. You know, they've let ISIS do, right? So what's next? Bring out an American journalist and cut his head off on video.
And then what they do, Popeye, is they release a message like this.
This is James Wright Foley, an American citizen of your country. As a government, you have been at the forefront of the aggression towards the Islamic State. You have plotted against us and gone far out of your way to find reasons to interfere in our affairs. Today, your military air force is attacking us daily in Iraq. Your strikes have caused casualties amongst Muslims. You are no longer fighting an insurgency. We are an Islamic army and a state that has been accepted by a large number of Muslims worldwide. So effectively, any aggression towards the Islamic State is an aggression towards Muslims from all walks of life who have accepted the Islamic Caliphate as their leadership. So any attempt by you, Obama, to deny the Muslims their rights of living in safety under the Islamic Caliphate will result in the bloodshed of your people.
Yep, there you go. It just seems awfully orchestrated, staged to me, Popeye, and very well timed.
Well, you see, it could be faked, but like they don't have to fake stuff like that. That's the whole point of keeping these guys for 2 years.
Well, see, I don't even know. I mean, we've not seen the video, so I can't say either way if that's faked, but certainly see all this, the social media wing of the Islamic State. It's something to behold, is it not?
I think it's interesting how they engage on Twitter.
Definitely.
I mean, if people really wanted to fight the war on terror, why not just engage these idiot ISIS putzes in a Twitter battle? I mean, seriously, they're willing to actually engage. Apparently, there was a conversation where they were discussing their favorite movies. Wow. I'm not kidding.
Well, it says that this guy, British John, was negotiating with some of the families via Skype. Now, surely in this day and age with GCHQ, NSA, etc., you can't tell me, Popeye, they couldn't have gained his IP, his location, and taken him out there and then.
Of course. Well, look, I look at it like this. It's probably very real that they cut this dude's head off, right? There's pictures of him laying there afterwards with his head lopped off and blood all over the place. So, okay. It could be staged. I don't think it's staged. I think the reason that they would keep these guys for that long, they had this dude for 2 years, right? They've kept him around so that way when they need to as a tool, which is what you saw him being used as, they have him come out wearing his orange uniform, on his knees, saying what he says, and then they saw his head off. and with a message like "We're coming for you," or "This is what happens," or Obama, or whatever. And then people say, "Oh well, look how horrible they are. Look, we have to go in there. Oh my God, they're so brutal. Those animals. We have to go in there. We have to do something." And this stuff is going to keep happening until the American public agrees and says we should put boots back on the ground. We need troops sent back in there. Then all of a sudden, the beheadings and stuff will stop because suddenly troops are on the ground and the military-industrial complex has what it wants. That's my view on it. I mean, yes, ISIS is, don't get me wrong, ISIS is bad, but they're allowing them to become as bad as they are so that they have a monster to fight.
And what's worrying for me, and Whistles, you're in the same boat here, it's a British guy that they've put at the front of this. This is going to result in us coming under more surveillance, giving up more rights, because a few lunatics have gone abroad to fight under the name of ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever you want to call them, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, did they not know that these people were going to come back anyway? Because that's all we get now, Kev, is this British guy that's going to be hyped to the gun. I mean, it is already. You can see it's never off Sky News. So, yeah, this is more street lights with cameras in them and bins that can talk to each other and everything else. So, yeah, something else will come
into it. It's all to make you feel safe, John. It's all to make you feel safe, man. But the fact that they're calling this guy one of the Beatles because there's 3 or 4 of these British guys in charge of the hostages, and the fact his name's John, surely it's not hard for them to work out who it is, Whistles.
No. Jihadi John.
It's the ghost of John Lennon. It must be.
So I guess we're going to have America's going to invade the UK and Scotland now? Because this guy was a British citizen and he has a British accent, so naturally, I guess we should just invade Britain and overthrow everybody, in charge in your government and kill all your politicians and then enslave all of its people, right? Like that's what we should do.
For years, I've been shouting for that.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Please invade.
What are they going to do? They're going to have those guards with the hats that they just stay, the furry hats. They're going to send them out and they'll send them versus the Marines. No, I know you guys actually have a decent military, but I would hope that your military would actually just turn around and arrest the royal scumbags and the pedophiles in charge. But
well, you see, that's the thing. They point the guns outward around the palace, and I think they should be pointing them inwards. The minute we do that, there'll be a game changer here.
Dude, that's all you got to do. You really don't have to. How would we get rid of the royal family? Just have the guards turn around. Everybody do a 180.
Popeye, I had an anonymous mask on down there just after Bilderberg. We went up to the gates of the place, and the actual police started to approach us with the guns levelled, pointed at us. Needless to say, well out of there.
Because you're now a terrorist for breathing in the wrong direction. And, the cops over there in England and, the UK and Scotland and all that, the whole shebang over there, they're just as bad as the cops over here. I mean, you breathe in the wrong direction, they have their guns out and, get on the ground, you could be a terrorist! Like, dude, you're overreacting. Okay? If you look up the definition of overreacting in the dictionary, there's a live video stream of you right now next to it. Okay? Stop.
Well, myself and Whistles were talking about that. What's the cause of that? Is it the training, Popeye? Is it the IQ of the officers they're now recruiting?
It's actually a perfect storm of a few things. It's that you have cops with lower IQs. They're from a different generation where the younger generations were raised much differently than we were, and the older generations, from us. And you also have, the training itself, where everybody's a freaking terrorist, and the founding fathers were terrorists, and your sister could be a terrorist, and working with Bin Laden, you might not even know it, and the war on drugs and America, it's all this perfect storm. There's a lot of issues, but we need to address them. One of the biggest problems, and the reason why people don't like police, is because there's never accountability. Cops can run around and beat and kill people, and they get away with it. But if us, as the general public, does that, we go to jail for murder. So there's not an even playing field there. It's not fair.
So in the likes of the Ferguson thing, do you think that officer should have been arrested right away until an investigation's carried out? Would that appease the public?
No, you shouldn't do that to appease. Then we live in mob rule. then we don't really have any sort of structure at all. Then we're not a republic anymore. That's not how things work. I know people want to get emotional, but that's not how things work. And I talked about this last night when I was on air, and the night before I had a friend of mine who's a police officer on for 2 hours, and we discussed Ferguson. And he even said, look, if a cop's wrong, then he should be arrested. And he should be fired, as a police officer, and he should be arrested and then, tried. But if he's not wrong, that needs to be addressed too. And there are people in the community itself in Ferguson that have said the exact same thing. That, look, if what the police officer did was wrong, if it wasn't what they call a clean shoot, if it wasn't justified, if he wasn't, if the kid wasn't attacking him or whatever, then he should be thrown in jail. If he murdered the kid in cold blood, then yes, he should be held to the same standard anybody else would and be thrown in jail. But if that kid attacked him and did, punch him and physically assault him, well, then nothing for nothing, but you got to be pretty dumb to think that you could punch a cop in the face and he's not going to either punch you or possibly shoot you for doing it. I mean, you get shot for not signing parking tickets and stuff here in the United States now. They SWAT team you for overdue library books. I'm not kidding. So what makes you think punching a cop in the face is not going to get you some sort of level of violence from the police officer? I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying you got to think. Use your head. So when you look at the situation, you as a good investigator, and this is something that I chastise the alternative media about often, because they're just like the general public and just like sometimes the mainstream, all the time the mainstream, a lot of times, because we're so used to seeing police brutality, like, because it is an epidemic, right? That instantly when there's a police-involved shooting, we automatically are the cop executed the guy. And there's a lot of people that, even though they're good investigators, that's the way they jumped into this whole thing, and you can't do that. If you're going to be a true investigator, you have to look at it from a neutral standpoint, not on the side of the police officer and not on the side of Michael Brown, middle of the road. Let the facts take you where they lead you. If the facts lead you that the cop executed Mike Brown in cold blood, then you arrest the cop. And you try him accordingly for murder. Not for manslaughter, for murder. Don't let his costume, get in the way. But if the facts lead you down the other direction, if this guy attacked Mike Brown and then the cop reacted, which would be called self-defense, you have to put yourself in that situation as well. Like, everybody feels, because they put themselves in the situation of Mike Brown, hands up, please don't shoot me, oh my God, I'm being shot, executed. Because that was the original story his friend said. But that's not actually what the facts say. What the evidence, even the autopsy, doesn't support that story. So there's an issue with that. So no, I don't think the cops should be charged and prosecuted just to appease the crowd, because then what's the point of having rules? What's the point of even having any sort of structure? Like, that means that, like, if the general public feels that you did something wrong, Kev, even if they're completely wrong and their perception of you is completely wrong, we gotta try you. I mean, if that's the way we're going to do things, let's go back to the Salem witch trials, because that's the way it is.
You're definitely man. And
oh my God, Kev floats in water. He's a warlock.
Oh, don't start. You need some of Joe's Dragon Force music for that. Definitely.
That's how they used to do things. You know that, right? Like, during the witch trials, that's what they did here. If, like, they would put a woman in water, and if she floated, if you sunk, because they assumed that human bodies were heavy and like stone, they would sink if you threw them in water, right? But we don't. We float. So they would see a woman float in the water, and they would say, "Oh my God, she's floating. She's a witch." And then they would hold her down and drown her. It's stupid, dude. Or sometimes they would drag her out of a lake and set her on fire or hang her, or however they did it.
They used to put them in like a wooden chair and tie them, and then dip them into the water. And if they drowned, which they would, then they were okay.
Yeah, because they weren't
a witch.
Yeah, because they weren't a witch. But if they survived, oh my God, you're a witch, burn her. So if you survive drowning, they tie you up to a stake and set you on fire. That's great. Thank you. Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
We should bring that back for the politicians once we take our shit back off them. We should just line them all up and duke them under the water.
Well, we could do that. We could line up and have everybody pay like $3, and then
it's
at
got
the
to
end
be
of the
better
day,
than this water challenge that's going about just now, surely.
Well, at the end of the day, you could take all the money from the proceeds, and we could use it to fix the infrastructure and everything else. It's just insane, dude. And like I said, as for the whole thing in Ferguson, it's just a mess. But no, they shouldn't prosecute that cop just to make everybody happy. Because then, what the hell's the point of even having any semblance of order? You know what I mean?
Well, the voice of reason, Popeye, as usual, brings some much-needed intelligence to KBS. We'll be back after these short messages.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Well, welcome back everyone to tonight's broadcast of the Kev Baker Show right here on www.truthfrequencyradio.com. What thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I've got Whistles on board and we've got Popeye from Down the Rabbit Hole. And Popeye, we're going to be jumping onto your show a couple of hours after this finishes. It's 3 a.m. in the UK. I believe that's 10 p.m. on the East Coast and 7 on the West Coast. And what are we going to be getting into tonight, man?
I want to pick your brains about the gun control, the police state over by you guys. I want my listeners, which I know I have listeners from all over the world, but I do have a large contingent of listeners here in the States, and I want them to get a perspective on things from an outsider's perspective, especially from, you guys have gone down the gun control turnpike already.
Yeah, don't you worry about that. I'll certainly air my opinions on that, and they might get slightly heated because I urge every American, keep it the way it is right now. Now, Popeye, Johnny Whistles, I was sharing an article with you there, and this is something I brought up just briefly on the show with Aaron and Melissa and Joe last night, and it's the fact that all these new words have made their way into the Oxford English Dictionary. Now, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about words such as side boob, douchebaggery, fandom. Yep, you're probably wondering, what the hell is Kev talking about? Popeye, have you seen this?
I didn't know that the words made it into the actual Oxford Dictionary, but it doesn't surprise me. I actually did a show about this when I was talking about racism about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. I did a show where I broke down racism again and how stupid it is and everything else. And I broke down the dreaded N-word that everybody's afraid to use over here in the United States. Well, and where it comes from and everything else. I went into it. And I explained how the word itself actually does not mean the pejorative that it's used for. Okay, it's actually the word itself actually means ignorant individual. It wasn't made up out of nowhere just to be a negative term used to describe black people back in the day, but it was turned into a pejorative against them, just like a lot of stuff is taken out of context and then twisted and turned. So if you went and looked up the word, and I know nobody likes to say it or look it up or, oh my God, I can't, but take 5 seconds. I know it's, to you it might be an ugly word, but try to look it up online. You'll see it's been changed. What I want you to do is this. Scroll down to the bottom of the page that the definition comes up on, either Oxford, whatever, Webster's, online dictionary. You'll see that it says it's now a pejorative used to, against black people, like a racial slur used to describe a black person or something like that. I forget how they worded the definition. But if you go read the comments on the page, you'll see people are complaining that the dictionaries all changed the definition. Because a couple years ago, if you looked it up, you would see the real definition says ignorant individual. That's what it means. Okay, the dreaded N-word actually means ignorant individual.
Well,
doesn't mean black person.
I'll hold my hands up, Popeye. That is actually new to me. I've just learned something there. I was mistaken under that one. But Whistles, you've been looking for a few, haven't you? What's some of the crackers that have come out from this?
Well, some idiot, okay, who's been looking at something on the internet, which is an article in the form of a numbered or bullet point list, is now called a listicle.
Oh, come on, John. YOLO.
Kev, why? Oh, God.
I mean, they've even got the word neckbeard in there. I mean, that would fit you, Popeye, would it? You're a neckbeard kind of man. And, of course, mansplain. When a man explains something. But I definitely think douchebaggery has to be the best one. Obnoxious or contemptible behaviour. Doesn't that just sum up the actions of the elites perfectly?
It's a great
Anyway.
word. It's a great word, douchebaggery.
But
But yes,
you've got a better one. You've got a better kind of douche word, don't you, Popeye?
oh, you like the word douche canoe.
I thought I want to make a case that we should get a petition going to get douche canoe in there. When you
It's
I
got
would go
two
for that.
meanings, though. It's got two meanings. It's either A, if a like an SUV filled with douchebags driving around. Okay, these douchebags all dressed up going to the club, and they're men that they do their what do they call it? Manscaping. Blah.
What's wrong with
Metrosexuals.
manscaping?
They have, you know, what do they call them? The skinny pants. They're not really dressing like men. They're wearing women's pretty much like men's version of women's clothing out to the clubs now. Like, really, guys, start dressing like men again. Like, I don't have a problem if you shave your beard. I have a problem if you just, you know what I mean. The
Popeye,
overboard
you just
douchebags, the
manscape.
pretty boys.
Mrs. Popeye doesn't make you manscape.
No, I keep everything I keep everything at a nice even trim, okay? But I'm not one of these metrosexual guys that goes overboard. I'm a real man. My wife likes the fact that I'm a man and that I'm not one of these idiots. Anyway, these guys, if you see a SUV, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? A douchebag. I don't even have to explain it. You just look. You're like, oh yeah, that's a douche, right? If you see a vehicle filled with them, preferably it's usually an SUV, because usually the douchebags drive like over here it's like Escalades and stuff. So you'll see Escalades or Ford Explorers or Chevys or whatever, and they're filled with a bunch of douchebags. That's a douche canoe. That's the first one. Now, the other definition is that you're such a huge douchebag, the individual themselves, that they themselves are the douche canoe because they are a douchebag of epic proportions. So yes, it does exist. Anyway, all kidding aside, the reason they're doing that, they're tweaking all the words. Look, they're adding that to the dictionary because it's the same thing. Like I brought up the dreaded N-word because they changed the definition. And the only reason why they changed the definition was because they changed it to meet what pop culture believes it is, not what the actual definition of the word is. So now the actual definition and the history and the root of the word don't matter anymore. I mean, that's like basic English and grammar and all this, and yet that's being thrown out the window for total programming. Just saying.
That's Adorb's Air Punch Amazeballs.
Oh, it's definitely part of
No. Please tell me Amazeballs isn't actually in the dictionary.
Oh yeah.
That's very impressive, enjoyable, or attractive.
And you can have a bro hug.
The editors at the Oxford English Dictionary should go home and set their houses on fire. Okay? And you should
lock themselves in.
Yes, and you should be totally ashamed of yourselves. For real. Like, what is wrong with you?
The one I don't get is cray-cray. C-R-A-Y. And it means crazy, but without that time-consuming extra syllable. But if you say it twice, it's 3 extra letters.
You see? Look, crazy. Hold on, let's count it out in simple in English class. When I was a kid, I remember in first grade, they taught you how to count the syllables with your hands. So let's go back. Crazy. Oh, that's 2. Hold on. Cray. Oh, 2. So even though I'm mutilating the word in an effort to be lazy, I'm really exerting the same amount of effort. So what am I really doing?
And then when you
I'm dumbing myself down.
Exactly, Pop. I was just going to say, and when you add 2 and 2 and it makes 5, the future is very, very grim, folks. Very grim indeed. We don't have a big...
Kev, I think you mansplained that really well.
Thank you very much. Like I said before, John, YOLO. Oh, it's pathetic. But
oh, jeez. Did you just YOLO? You only live once?
That's in there as well, man.
I had to look that up the first couple of times I saw that. I was like, what's this YOLO? Because everybody's like, YOLO. And I'm like, what is the YOLO? People are all doing stupid, retarded things. And then I looked it up and it's, you only live once. Well, I'm not really a firm believer in you only live once, so YOLO doesn't work for me. That's like the most base, dumbed down, just retarded level of thinking that you could have somebody. See, this stuff, I am convinced, because I know I've seen the research and I've done the research myself to show that a lot of this stuff comes out of Langley, right, and out of think tanks like that, to almost test the waters and see how easily they control people. So I wonder if there's actually like a group of guys sitting in a room filled somewhere, sitting around with like cigars and brandy, and they're like, "Here's one, YOLO." You know what I mean?
That's what they do when our rebroadcasts are on during the day, Popeye. The actual day shift down at GCHQ, they actually morph into the new word team. And then the night shift listen into us for all our keywords that we always come out with, like fertilizer, bomb, beheadings.
Well, if you say video, apparently I guess you're now a terrorist over in the UK too. I guess if watching YouTube videos will soon be terrorism, and then just breathing will soon be terrorism over by you.
It's actually impossible to have a conversation without using one of the keywords nowadays, I believe. Any normal kind of word just kind of gets you onto a list for something. Jono, the amount of lists we must be on is unbelievable. And again, Facebook, Messenger, the only thing that it is good for is trying to get yourself some illicit drugs. And they're going to be doing away with that as well, Johnny, aren't they?
Oh, no, what about that one? No, you can't even put in that you're sitting and having a herbal cigarette with your friends.
Hypothetically, because by saying that, Popeye, I don't know if you've seen this, come October, Zuckerberg and his drug task force are going to be monitoring all the Facebook Messenger messages, as they do anyway, but they're taking it a step further now, because if they see any talk of drugs or drug dealing or anyone trying to acquire drugs, you're going to be getting the SWAT at the door.
So, wait, is that only in the UK or is that over here too?
Oh, no, that's everywhere on Facebook, Popeye.
Oh, so now if you're having a message and someone's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just smoking, sitting back, chilling, smoking a big fat one." They'll literally send the cops to your door when they see that.
Yeah, literally. Facebook Drug Force began monitoring all messages on October the 1st. And its chairman, Mark Zuckerberg, said the task force was created to keep Facebook users safe. You couldn't make that up, folks. But basically, yeah, they're going to be monitoring in real time. How they're going to manage that, I do not know. But in real time for drug deals going on, Popeye.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What happens in states where it's completely legal, like Washington and Colorado, and people are like, "I'm smoking a big fat one in front of the police right now, and they can't do shit. What are you going to do? What are they going to do, monitor that and then call the same police that are watching the guy smoke the joint legally? How does that work?
That's a very good point. But over here in Scotland and everything, we're not going to be able to do... I mean, let's face it, Johnny, that's one of the main uses for Facebook Messenger, isn't it?
It is. Exactly, Kev. Because it's... Oh,
you guys need to learn how to use code. What do I got to do? I got to give a class on how things were done back in the day before you had cell phones?
Back in the day? You're talking to Whistles. He was back in the Stone Age, man. He knows all the tricks.
Yeah, well, he's Voldemort. He ought to know how to send things via smoke signals in another dimension, so it shouldn't even be a problem for him.
No, it's not a problem, but I don't like showing off. So.
And Popeye, I've asked you before, but how's things stand in your state? Are you any closer to medical marijuana, recreational marijuana?
November. We vote in November. And
it's getting close, man. I hope you manage to get it.
Well, from all the polls that we've done, or they've been doing down here, it's going to pass.
You know, Popeye, I would love to find a way of motivating as many people that have done the water challenge to actually raise awareness about the effectiveness of medical marijuana. Because actually donating to the charities as they are just now, it was Melissa Melton, she said it last night and it really resonated with me, but you never ever see any charity coming out and celebrating the fact that they've achieved their goal, they've cured whatever they're researching. And I think if we raised awareness about something that genuinely can help people, then that would be all the better. But how do we motivate them to do that?
Well, that whole ice water bucket challenge thing is just stupid. I mean, that's just a bunch of
utterly insane.
It's so stupid, dude. And people like I talked about this last night. It started off that you were supposed to dump the ice water on yourself if you didn't donate money. It was like almost like a punishment type thing. And now people are just doing it because other people are doing it. You know what I mean? It's not even about raising awareness. The raising awareness thing is almost like a feel-good, emotional secondary attachment that they use to sell the stupidity with. And people are just literally jumping on this and, "Oh, I mean well, so I'm going to dump a bucket of ice water on myself." Ask yourself something. How does dumping ice water on yourself actually help anybody with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease? Explain this to
I've
me.
seen a lot of people satisfying themselves and their ego here.
But it doesn't do anything. And let me tell you something. Only like 10% of, you can look this up. This is one of the reasons when after 9/11, besides being a first responder, when I helped out with the Red Cross, I helped out like driving trucks, loading supplies, and bringing it to ground zero. I wouldn't give them $1. I gave them my labor. The reason I wouldn't give them $1 is because I knew the money wasn't going to go to the people. I knew it wasn't. And it came out afterwards that that's right, it doesn't. The way these charities works is a lot of times they have money already in an account. Something happens, they dole out a little bit of money to help out, do this, do that. And then they use the event as a fundraiser. And they normally make 3 or 4 times the amount coming in that they dole out. But they don't tell the people donating that. The people donating think that the money is going directly to the people affected by the disaster. It's not. Only about 10%, and it's the same thing with research, only about 10% of the money actually gets used for this stuff. The rest of it, you can go look up the ALS Foundation. There was a guy that put the video up on Facebook the other day. He did a video, and he shot it with his cell phone, and he shows them going right to the website. And their own information coming from them says that they only use like 10% of the money that they get for research. The rest of it goes for salaries and overhead and all this other crap. So if only 10% of it actually goes towards research into curing the disease, well, gee, no wonder disease hasn't been cured. It's not profitable to cure disease, Kev.
I was just going to say that, Popeye. The 10% that does go towards that, it's not even as if they're trying to cure it. Anyway, they're just trying to find more expensive treatments that will prolong the agony of the sufferer of whatever condition it is. Because
well, think about it this way. Let's put it in numbers. If there's $1 million donated, say someone's like, but they raised $1 million for the ALS thing with the ice water bucket challenge. Okay, that's great. They raised $1 million. Only 10% of that is going to go towards research. So $100,000 goes to research and $900,000 goes to salaries, bonuses, paying for buildings for these people to work in, paying for the insurance, paying for the electric, the plumbing, all of that overhead. And any other thing that they might need, PR, whatever. All of that, where do you think that money comes from? It's not like it's not like it's a bunch of rich people coming together and say, hey, if you give me a couple bucks, we'll all pull it together. No, they come together and go, give us the money and we'll take care of it. Well, you got to pay somebody to take care of it. Who do you think pays the CEOs? Who do you think pays their secretaries and their assistants and their drivers and when they have limos or they fly around in corporate jets? Who do you think pays for that? You do, when you donate.
None of these people are struggling, folks. It's all a scam. And like I say, even the 10% that makes it into the research, it isn't to cure it. So I urge everyone to start blitzing out things like Phoenix Tears. Is that the name of Rick Simpson's product, Popeye?
That's his website. It's not really his product. If you watch the movie Run from the Cure, you can learn how to make your own. You have to not just watch the movie and think you're an expert. Do your research, but you can make your own cannabis oil, and you don't have to deal with this. I mean, this is just stupid. It's utterly stupid. And you want to see something here? Check this out. We're going to do this right now. I like to do this on my show with my listeners, so I'm going to do it with your listeners now. Okay, everybody go to YouTube. I'll give everybody like 30 seconds. YouTube.com. Even in the UK, I'm sure it's youtube.com or whatever.
It is Popeye, yep.
/ UK or / Evil Queen, something like that. / Lizard Face, I think.
Pedo Palace.
Yes, youtube.com / Evil Queen Lizard Pedo Palace, and then the YouTube comes up. So go to YouTube and then type in, all you got to do is type in, just send your cash. And you hear me typing it, right? Just type in, just send, if I could actually spell just properly, that would probably help my dyslexia.
You want a copy of my new dictionary?
Right? Now, if you type in just send your cash, you'll see videos pop up. The first one is Bush on CBS. Just send your cash. And this is from, remember the Haiti earthquake where they were raising all the money for the Haitians, and they raised like over $1 million in a couple days? Not 1 cent of that went to the Haitian earthquake victims. Okay? Now, I bring this up because everybody always says, people are going to say, well, if you're bashing, charities, how can I help? I want to help out. You actually need to either, if you're in the area, physically help out on the ground, go see what you can do, get out and actually donate clothing and stuff like that, blankets and food. That makes a big difference. Here, I'll show you why. Because now you look back in hindsight, Not a dollar that was donated to the Haitian earthquake relief went to these people. There's been investigations into it. Just the media doesn't talk about it, so you don't know about it. But it's there if you go do your research.
Popeye, what happened in the wake of that actual disaster? It was actually worse once the UN and things actually went in there to help people.
I know. Well, you had like martial law, and then you had all the health problems that came about from those camps and everything, everybody getting sick. But all the money that was donated from people all over the world to help those people, it never made it to them. It was Bush and Clinton. Just send your cash. Now that everybody's Googled it or YouTubed it, okay, here's George W. Just send your cash. This is why nothing gets done.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash. One of the things that President will do is to make sure your money is spent wisely. I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash. One of the things that President will do is to make sure your money is spent wisely.
Liar.
Wow.
Absolute
shocking.
Liar. That was out in front of the White House. That's CBS News. That's the first video that pops up. If you go on YouTube and type in just send your cash, that's what comes up.
Do you know what else makes me sick? When you see all these Hollywood A-listers making their way over to Africa or these disaster zones, and they're asking for the likes of me, you, Whistles, and all our listeners out there to put our hands in our pocket. The adverts are usually timed right when you're eating your meal, just to pull on your heartstrings a little bit more. And yet these guys are getting arguably $10, $15 million a movie. They could eradicate whatever problem they're on about right there and then if they were genuine. And that's what really irks me about all that.
When they tell you that they want to invade a country or whatnot, or do something for humanitarian purposes or whatnot, or whatever, or we really want to help people. If they wanted to help people, they wouldn't be sending bombs, rockets, and bullets to other nations to use against other human beings. We would be getting together and trying to handle things politically and end these fights. And if someone's like, well, my people are hungry and starving, they have no water, how do I go back and tame them? One of their politicians, and you say, we'll help you build a desalinization plant. You don't have any freshwater lakes around you or reservoirs, but you have the ocean. We'll help you build a desalinization plant. We'll work with your government, But there's ways to do it positively, and then there's ways to just go in and take everything over and try to control humanity, which is what they're doing right now. I mean, all the money that we spend on war, we could have ended poverty like 10 times over. We could have ended homelessness around the world 10 times over. But no, let's keep making bullets that chase people around corners and missiles, because we need the newest missile. I know we spent $10 million on a new version last year, but it's last year's version. We need this year's version.
And Israel will buy 100 of them.
No, we are going to give them to them.
But look what happens to people when they do try and do the right thing. Gaddafi, he was wanting to give water to everyone. I mean, they've got statues of him in some African countries, Popeye, because of some of the great work he done, some of the real genuine work for humanity. But look what happens to him the minute he starts threatening to sell his oil for something other than dollars.
If you bought a house there, the government subsidized half of it. They would pay for half the house.
And also, if you went abroad to study, you'd get that paid for, just on the condition that you would come back and then maybe train the next generation of whatever career you had chosen.
And they did that. They helped them with the houses because they wanted them to stay there, and they wanted them to invest in the country's future. He knew what he was doing. I'm not saying Gaddafi was a perfect human being, but first of all, he didn't blow up Pan Am Flight 103. Okay, ask Susan Lindauer. I've had her around 100,000 times talking about that.
Yes,
okay,
awesome information.
So that's one thing. That got pinned on him. Two, even though none of these world's leaders are perfect people, what we did to him was barbaric. We broke a bunch of international laws. I mean, they lured him out into the desert under the guise of meeting with Hillary Clinton and then hit him with a drone strike and then let the rebels go in and take care of the rest. I mean, that's nice. And the rebels. I say the rebels.
Of course, Hillary goes over and bathes in the blood and celebrates openly on camera like something evil. Oh, I hate her. You guys are going to have to watch out over there, Popeye. She's going to be your next commander and thief.
Oh, they're already talking that if you're against Hillary, it's now, and you're not racist anymore. because Obama's, they realize Obama's done a horrible job. It's pretty hard. Like every once in a while you'll hear it, but you don't hear "you're racist if you don't like Obama" meme anymore. Okay, because he's already getting, he's on his second term. They're going to blame him just like they did Bush. He's on his way out. Now they talk about Hillary, about how great she is, even if they disparage her here or there because she makes a stupid statement or something. They talk about how great she is, and when someone talks against her. You could have pictures of Hillary Clinton eating a child, right? Or sucking its soul out, and they would be like, "You're sexist." Well, they're probably out there, but the people are MSNBC especially is if you're against Hillary, you're sexist. That's the new thing. So it went from racist to sexist. It's always an ist, just changes.
Makes you wonder what's going to happen 8 years on from then.
If people really vote for her, we're in trouble. Although I've seen
what's going to happen, Popeye.
I've seen bumper stickers that said Hillary Michelle 2016, as in Michelle Obama. Yes,
man.
Yes. God.
Yes. Can you imagine that, dude? Like, really? And what qualifications does she have? Because she was the first lady. So, I've had Melissa Melton on before. We said this.
The first lady boy.
Well, like Melissa said, when we've talked about Hillary Clinton, so she's just qualified to be the next president because she's got boobs and a vagina. So that means the two of them are qualified to be president and vice president because they're women. That doesn't make any sense. If we said that just about, these guys are qualified because they're men, we'd be called sexists. So hello, it doesn't. The street is two ways, not one way. Just saying. Use your brains, ladies and gentlemen. Don't fall for it. Hillary is evil. That's all I'm saying.
And listen, folks, if you want to hear more of this, join us 2 hours from now. We'll be on Down the Rabbit Hole with our good friend here, Popeye. Until then, stay tuned for Joe Joseph. And wherever you are, keep it TFR.